Gene Smith from Ohio State just decided to poop all over that idea. Once money was on the table, then all of this alliance stuff instantly evaporated because money talks and BS walks. We all know what that is. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football, back at it again. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for being here. This is Jake with Master Football, all things pro football, college football, video game football, anything related to American football we discuss in the show right now. Please subscribe, please like, please share, please comment, please subscribe. Do all that stuff. I'd really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, so the moral of the story is this is all Texas and Oklahoma's fault. Now, you may be asking, okay, that's not necessarily true. But again, we all know what happened. Texas and OU were talking, they go into the SEC. The Big 12 decides to fracture, and they start to absorb as many teams as they can. Maybe the Pac-12 wants them. Maybe the Big 10 wants them. Maybe the ACC wants them. It all kind of went all hell in a handbasket. Then we saw this as a response because the SEC was gaining power, gaining solid teams, doing their best to absorb as much as they can. And then we saw this happen. So boom, here we are on September 15th, 2021. Big 10 ACC Pac-12 Alliance could feature season-long matchups, commissioners say. So essentially what happened there was the fact that, and if I may narrow it down to what I think actually happened here, was the fact that the Big 10 ACC and Pac-12 looked at essentially I don't want to say the corpse, but I'll just say the corpse of the Big 12. And they're like, well, it looks like the Big 12, which did have 10 teams, lost 2, now they're down to 8. What kind of assets do we have to take there? And again, they were like Dave Wanstead thought that the Oklahoma State and Kansas State were going to the Pac-12, but Kansas is going to the Big 10. There was all types of situations there that were kind of being discussed. However, what happened there is the fact that the Big 10 ACC Pac-12 looked at that husk of the Big 12, didn't really like what they saw, wanted to then find other routes there. So pushed heavily by George Kliavkoff of the Pac-12. We're going to talk about the Pac-12 a little bit more than normal today. They pushed for something called the Alliance, where essentially the Alliance is a kind of a handshake agreement that the Big 10, ACC, and Pac-12 would be agreeing to play each other throughout the year. You know, Purdue's going to play Stanford, Washington State's going to play, Florida State, USC is going to play Michigan, all these types of games happening over and over and over again. So, and again, this would be kind of like have you ever seen in college basketball, the Big 10 ACC Challenge? It's kind of the similar thing here, except for the Pac-12 is being pushed in because they wanted to be included. One of the big aspects of this, and a huge aspect of this, was the fact that all the teams had kind of had a wink handshake agreement that they would be going to a 8-game conference schedule down from 9. The reason why they were at 9 was because they just wanted to have more conference games. We went over that in several videos before in terms of grant of rights, being able to sell those rights to your TV partners, how important those are, how many games, and so on and so forth. But continuing on with that, we see the fact that they wanted to. There was the agreement, and again, the agreement was the fact that they are going to be going from 9 down to 8 in order to open up one more game so that you could schedule between the Big 10, the ACC, and the Pac-12. So where were they with that? All right, so we are on ESPN from Adam Rittenberg. Big 10 ADs prefer to keep 9-game league schedule despite its effect on the alliance. So Gene Smith from Ohio State just decided to poop all over that idea. It says right here, Smith, speaking Wednesday with reporters in Columbus, said the Big 10 athletic directors walked away from the idea of reducing the conference schedule from 9 games to 8, which would have allowed more alliance matchups. The 3-league partnership formed in the wake of Oklahoma and Texas announcing their departures from the Big 12 to the SEC included a football scheduling component for more future games. Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff, and again, George Kliavkoff was the number one cheerleader of the alliance, said in December that his league would immediately reduce its conference schedule from 9 to 8 as long as the Big 10 did the same thing. The ACC currently plays an 8-game league schedule, although multiple future models, including a 9-game slate, were discussed at the league's recent athletic directors meetings, sources told ESPN's Andrea Adelson. If all 3 conferences end up with 9-game conference schedules, the number of spots for alliance matchups will be significantly reduced. Yeah, essentially, what was that? 4 down to, it would be a 25% reduction. The number of spots for alliance matchups will be significantly reduced, especially if annual rivalry games such as USC Notre Dame, Iowa State, Florida State, and Florida continue regularly. I mean, in addition to Maryland, West Virginia, that's another one there. There's lots of those that are going to continue on that are going to drastically reduce the ability of these teams to play each other. So it says here, I think the whole alliance piece can have some positive for the teams that maybe don't have those other rivals. Miami Athletic Director Dan Radakovich told Adelson. So I think we have to see if we can really get into that. But remember, football scheduling is not something that changes on a dime, so we'll have to have those discussions. Smith said it in the Big Ten athletic directors pivoted from a reduction in league games as soon as the alliance was formed. A source told the Big Ten has always prioritized its own conference scheduling format before evaluating how it would impact opportunities outside the league. Well, of course. I mean, for the longest time, the Big Ten, I mean, again, I think especially right now, I know the recent report came out for the COVID year that the SEC did well. I think the SEC did well because they actually played 10, 11, 12 games rather than just a conference schedule. But the Big Ten makes the most money. Big Ten's got a lot of blue blood, universities, a lot of older fans. They have a huge amount of fanmanship. Fanmanship is that thing? Fandom in the Northeast, Northwest, and the Great Lakes. Not the Northwest, but the Great Lakes region. So you see the fact that, like they said, they're like, we just want to play our own guys because we make more money off of our own schedule we do from scheduling Washington State or Wake Forest or things like that. Smith continues. He says, many of us felt 9 was still right in our scheduling model. We felt that the conference contests from a TV partner point of view, of course, the TV partner point of view, aka dollar bills, y'all, were just as valuable. So we decided to kind of walk away from that a little bit. That doesn't mean it might not come back up. But at the point in time, we walked away. Of course they walked away. So, I mean, they're doing their best right here. To remember here is the fact that this alliance, like I said, this alliance was meant to head off or at least slow down the creep of the SEC until we're all just the SEC. What if the SEC got to the point where it was just 64 teams? This is, I think, their attempt at trying to stop that, but whatever. Continuing on here, it says here that there were multiple meetings taking place with the Big Ten Conference leaders discussing the goal of optimizing the impact of Big Ten Conference football and the outstanding accomplishments of our member institution student athletes, the league said in a statement to ESPN. I think a big aspect down here, and it said this, is that Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren meets weekly with the athletic directors to discuss scheduling, the alliance, and other major items. Smith also said he expects college football playoff to eventually expand to 12 teams. Despite stalled negotiations among leagues, although the proposed model would allow teams ranked 5 through 8 to host a first-round game on campus, Smith likes the flexibility of moving games indoor venues because of the weather concerns. I know our fans rally around that, and they like to host Alabama up here, but now we have the flexibility to move into domes, Smith said. Now we can move into Lucas Oil or Ford Field or in Minneapolis or whatever if we end up hosting. That's important because who knows what the inclement weather could be like at that time of year or at any of our places in the north, so we need that flexibility. I actually am surprised they said that because part of Big Ten football is playing in Big Ten areas. So if you're the number 5 team in the country and you are hosting the number 12 team in the country and the number 12 team is from Texas, you're like, well, too bad, bro. It's Michigan or it's Wisconsin. You got to come out here and play us in our weather. But again, we're going to get into that later. The big aspect of this is the fact that and you remember that, once money was on the table, then all of this alliance stuff instantly evaporated because money talks and BS walks. We all know what that is. I have another thing here from the Denver Post that says, Pac-12 stock report, the alliance takes one in the gut, the future of football schedules, UCLA lost the opportunity to watch it. Whatever. We're not going to talk about those last two. We're talking about the other ones. So it says right here, likelihood of falling the likelihood of alliance games. Again, remember what we said is that Gene Smith just poked a hole in this whole thing. It's just blowing up right now. But I wanted to go show a couple of things down here just to kind of show up. The Pac-12 is in a really rough spot right now. And again, I want to make sure that we kind of discuss that because how do I say this? They're kind of in a rough spot and in a good spot at the same time. They're at a crossroads. That's the better idea. The Pac-12 is at a crossroads. I want to go through this article, this little section right here. I want to go through a map to show you why too, and then I want to show you about the number one factor I think that's holding the Pac-12 back from exploding, in addition to talking about the factors that could make it explode. But continuing here, remember how I said that George Kliavkoff was the biggest proponent, the biggest fan of the alliance is because of several issues here. However, one thing that could help is this. So it says right here that the move to 8 conference games is one of several structural changes of the football season under consideration in San Francisco, Pac-12 headquarters. But Pac-12 teams must have someone to play, someone of substance, and for its fans and its media partners. The conference cannot drop a 9th game and fill a slot with a cream puff opponent that won't generate ticket sales or revenue. That's why a series against the Big Ten works perfectly, and why, absent a series with the Big Ten, the conference may very well stick to the 9-game model, at least for the time being. Ultimately, Kliavkoff and the athletic directors are willing to make whatever changes give the Pac-12 its best chance to maximize its opportunities for the expanded college football playoff. Those opportunities depend on the process for determining the automatic qualifiers. the automatic and at-large qualifiers. In our view, the most likely outcome is continuation of the 9-game conference schedule, but with a shift to a single division. That's a conference discussion there because there's divisions. Do we have divisions? Why do we even have these? And again, unless you have a conference that has multiple dominant teams, you have to have 3 undefeated teams to have any sort of drama there who all just so happen to not play each other. Very, very low likelihood of that happening. But again, what if USC and UCLA are the top 2 teams? What if USC and Utah are the top 2 teams? They're in the same division. They might not play. I do think this is one thing that could be a strength of theirs. Although I don't know what it is, man. I personally like the directional ability, same teams every year, same rivals, and so on and so forth, rather than shifting all that stuff around. But that's just me. I want to get to, though, a bigger discussion about why I think the Pac-12, one of the things that's going to hurt them. I think the 9-game conference schedule is going to help them out, although the fact that they're not going to be able to schedule, I think if I had to choose, if I'm the Pac-12, between a 8-game conference schedule, but I play one guaranteed Big Ten team or one guaranteed ACC team every year. And again, it wouldn't be worth it if USC played, like I said, Wake Forest, or if UNC played Washington State. But what if we had Clemson, UCLA? What if we had Stanford, Purdue? I know that would be like an educational bowl, whatever. But what if we had UW versus Florida State? I mean, if UW's good, UW was terrible this last year. But I'm saying that if they're hot and Florida State's hot, those could be some games that you could market out there that would be pretty good. If I had to choose between 9 in the Pac-12 or 8 in those, I would choose 8 in those. However, I think that there's not going to be an option for 8 in those because the Big Ten and the ACC are probably going to go to 9, and the Pac-12 is going to keep 9. But let's remember this, and again, this is going to really, really highlight why the Pac-12 really wanted this alliance the most, and why expansion kind of hurts them, and they're kind of in a tough spot from this perspective. So I did our bets here. So we have the blue dots are going to be the ACC, the green dots are going to be the Big Ten, and then the purple dots are going to be the Pac-12. So you see here, Washington State, Oregon State, Cal Stanford, USC, UCLA, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. Now, remember this, is that Colorado and Nebraska used to be Big 8 opponents, and they actually have a rivalry, but the fact that Colorado, and I remember a couple of people saying this, Colorado actually kind of feels like a Pac-12 school. It's got a Pac-12 vibe. And Nebraska, AAU member, solid education, they go to the Big Ten to fit in nicely. So, do you notice a pattern here? Look at the distance between the purple dots and all the other dots. So the ACC and the Big Ten match up pretty nicely, So in terms of like Pitt, in terms of, what we got up here, we got Syracuse. These teams can kind of coordinate pretty nicely across the board. We got Louisville, we've got Indiana. These teams can much more easily negotiate and settle these out. Now remember here is that at the top, it doesn't matter. So Michigan can travel anywhere. Ohio State can travel anywhere. But if we want to make this easier for all parties involved, we would make sure that the Indianas of the world, the Illinois of the world, the Syracuses of the world, the Boston colleges of the world have an easier time traveling through. The Pac-12 doesn't really have that. So the problem with the Pac-12 is that they basically had a couple options for expansion. BYU, which unfortunately, because of the religious concerns and because they kind of already have the Utah market, we're not going to get invitation in. They get invited to the Big 12. I mean, what else do we have here? Boise State is over here in Idaho, halfway between Utah and Washington State. Don't really add anything. Idaho's already kind of in Pac-12 territory. That's the reason why the Pac-12 is looking to add teams in Texas, expanding its footprint over here. But you see the fact that geography is kind of holding the Pac-12 back. There's also one thing that's holding the Pac-12 back immensely. So you guys remember the Pac-12 media deal. The Pac-12 media deal is, if you ever want an exercise in just stupidity and just dumbness, not even real, I don't even care if that's a real word, but go look at the Pac-12 media deal. It was an absolutely awful deal. It was struck. Now, remember this. So it's going to stick more than likely for the 2022 season. It's going to be negotiated in the spring of 2023, and then I want to say 2024 after the 2023-2024 academic year. So that would be June 30th of 2024. That deal is going to expire. They are more than likely to go, who knows? Are they going to be the first one that's going to do a streaming deal? Are they going to actually get a real network and a real channel that's going to be available on DirecTV? Because they don't even have that right now. What are they going to do? I do think, though, that once that happens, again, right now, the alliance is hurting them. So the things that are hurting the Pac-12 right now are the alliance, lack of a dominant team in the North. You could say maybe Oregon, but I'm not even sure about that. And the fact that USC is down. Those are all hurting them right now. Now, they have several things that are happening right now. Jed Fish, ironically, is doing a really good job of recruiting with a 1-11 squad down there in Arizona. You see Lincoln Riley's coming in. The Pac-12 media deal's ending soon. Like I said, it's going to end reasonably soon. More than likely this next spring, a year from now, they're going to be negotiating for the new TV rights deal, which is going to be a boon for them because their current deal sucks. They've got a lot of things going on. I do know that, again, right now in the Pac-12, the only thing you could really rely on is Utah. And Utah is a solid team. They're kind of like the Iowa and Wisconsin of the Pac-12. They're never going to win a national championship, but they're always going to be a thorn in your side, and they're like solid, That's all the Pac-12 has right now. If Lincoln Riley can change that around, this Pac-12 media deal hits, and another team, Arizona, who knows? I mean, maybe a team in the North turns it around. They've got a lot going well for them if they can hit on all those things. If they can't, they get a crappy TV deal or something like that, and Lincoln Riley is a flop, man. The Pac-12, they've got a lot fighting against them, so hopefully they can turn that around. All right, guys, that's it. So like I said, Alliance basically dead. Pac-12 is, the stock is low, but it might be a good time to buy because I think there's a lot of things that are coming up for them. In terms of the Big Ten knows that they're the biggest league. They're the highest earning league over the SEC. I know maybe except for the COVID year, but for the most part, the Big Ten is the highest earning league. They all kind of realize that. The Big 12's corpse wasn't good enough to be pillaged by any of the schools out there. So that's the reason why this alliance was formed. This alliance looks like it's falling apart. That's where we're at right now. Lots more to come, but most recent report we have is that the alliance probably just for show. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'd appreciate it. I am gone for the weekend. I will see you guys. I'm out.